coached some of the best brains, some best minds in the game, Eli and Peyton, T. Martin, Daniel Jones. You've coached some of the greatest, like from a leadership standpoint, and particularly at that quarterback position. What were some of the things that you look for outside? Again, those tangibles that you wanted. You knew that this is the guy that's going to run your organization, and you can count on.
Great question. And the intangibles are everything. It's interesting. People might laugh at this. Leaders, true leaders, and at that quarterback position, you have to be that. You have to be a decisive person. You can't let decisions be made by indecision. Mm-hmm. I hate leaders that do that. Sometimes that's called leadership of consequence, and I look for that in a player. And here's my simple start with them. I'm going to sit down with them in a restaurant and have them order off the menu. And if they can't make up their mind what they're going to eat, I don't want them as a quarterback. I'm serious. You have to be a decisive person. People don't understand the average football play doesn't last very long. And so within that 5 seconds, the quarterback generally has a little pre-snap and post-snap read that's going to be within 2.5, 3 seconds. Okay, if you're not decisive, you got no shot. The Patton principle was this. He said this: make a decision, and then the job is to go like hell to make sure you've made the right decision. Peyton and I talk about that all the time today. Okay, I don't like namby-pamby decision makers. Okay, that's one. The other thing is I like quarterbacks that will walk in a room full of people and not walk in and say, here I am. And this is good for anybody. Say, there you are. There you are. And that person is a real quarterback leader. The quarterback gets way too much attention and credit, win or lose.
Yep.
But you always walk in a team meeting room with a there you are attitude, not here I am. And it goes back to my intangible reading of people. I did the same thing in hiring coaches. Our coaches are still in the NFL and still at different programs collegiately, guys that you knew and love. And, you got Coach Mid up there at New York, and you got, it just makes me smile.
Coach
because
Hobby.
I love them. Oh, yeah, Hobby is up there in Cincinnati. They getting the ship righted, and these are people that I sincerely love for all the right reasons. But let me tell you, and when you look at a quarterback, that guy, this is the last thing, like I've said, see him play live. And I made a point. I can't stand palms up. When somebody goes palms up, like, it's either not my fault or what you're saying basically is, well, I have no control over this. Oh, really?
Wasn't my fault.
You have no control over your actions. You have no control over your life. You have no control over what just happened on this play. Come on, man. No, never palms up. If I had a palms up, the longer I stayed in it at Duke, I was going to punish the whole team if anybody palmed up out there in a ball game or practice. Coach Aristotle, that's the other thing about making practice like a game. Coach Aristotle, I don't know what sport they were playing back then. He was the first coach that realized how important reps were. Mm-hmm. We become what we repeatedly do, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I want that guy that's trying to win the game every snap at practice. And then that's how you start to see it. And then there are tangibles. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have them. You have to have those.
You have to have them. And you mentioned T. Martin. I want people to pay attention to Lamar Jackson the last 2 years. The last 2 years, T has been his quarterback coach. Some of his meetings that were videoed, and I'm sitting there hearing and smiling what T is teaching Lamar. And I have great respect for Lamar Jackson, great respect, because he is one of those guys that hung around the equipment room when he was at Louisville. That tells you a lot, okay? People may not understand that. And he's one of those people that walks into a room and says, there you are. And T has been great for him. And I'm hoping that Lamar is great for T, because I'd like to see T running an NFL football team as a head coach sooner than later. What a remarkable man he is. What a remarkable young man. I'll never forget going to Williamson High School to recruit T, and I'm coming out of there like Tiger Woods, fist bump. Yeah, man, you knew. And all he did was win a national championship at Tennessee, okay? There are reasons. Yes, he had tangibles, but his intangibles were through the roof.
And Coach, you talk about these leadership, these from a quarterback position, and I'm glad you brought up T. Martin. And T. Martin transitioned to coaching and different things outside of football, outside of actually playing football. Was it your goal as a leader of men to prepare your leaders to do other things than just football? How did you see that process when you were looking at young men to recruit for football, but your ultimate goal was to see them to go further in life?
Well, it's like you're a leader. And you've had your own business, and you've done the things that great leaders can do. Not that that's a requirement to be a great leader, to have your own business. But I loved people that shared with me that they had an interest in coaching. And I'm going to give you two things. One, Coach Bryant said to me, and the other one is a definition of what that word means, coach.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think they're both amazingly important to remember. So the first thing, Coach Bryant, I was talking to him about going to Tennessee. Johnny Majors had offered me a job. And he said, well, let me tell you something about college coaching. He said, you don't get in it because you think you'll love it or you'll like it. The only reason you want to be a college coach is that you can't live without it. And I thought about that sitting there with him, and then he said, let me tell you why. He said, those young people, it's the first time they're outside of their home. You're going to have a great deal to do with molding what kind of men they become. Mm. So don't even consider it if you think you can live without it. And I thought about that, and I took the job, went up there and made next to nothing, and which was okay. It had nothing to do with money, and fell in love with it. And that's when I realized that, you know what? These college guys were children too. No offense to anybody. Y'all all going to get mad at me if you're a college player and hear it. But they were. And then the other thing is the word coach. Okay, I love to study words. And best I can tell, people can fact check me if they want. But in Hungary, back in the 16th century, there was a town, and I may not pronounce it right, Koski, that is where they made these wagons and wheels that were kind of new to the whole system. And they made this, and they called them Koski. And then as it transitioned into the English language, and for the most part in England, what people then got into was a coach. We've heard of a stage coach in the West, and it was a coach. So what it meant was people were somewhere, and a coach picked them up and carried them to a desired destination.
Wow.
And every coach that has ever coached for me, I made them understand that. That's how critically important your job is, and what an honorable title. If they're going to call you Coach Spencer or Coach T. Martin, that's it. You're taking people from where they are to that desired destination. How awesome and rewarding can that be? So those are the two things that I would mention. But coaching is a special opportunity for all of us that have, think about it. But I think we maybe been called to do that.
Coach, you just gave me chills. Give me that history lesson about the word coach and where it came from, and taking people on their journey to that next place, and get them there with skills and tools to thrive in whatever environment they go into. I now see, why and who you are, because you studied that. You studied the word, and you have a real true sense of it, and I can see that passion bleeding through. And so I would say I'm gonna take it easy on you here for a second. We do this thing called the 2-minute drill going into halftime, and everybody know the 2-minute drill is different from going in from halftime than in the fourth quarter. And so so you may think different when I ask you this question, but I will ask you. My original question was, tell me one of your favorite players you coached. But I know you've done this for so long, 35 years of this. I'm not going to put you on the spot to do that, but I will ask you. Give me a couple guys, a list of guys that have been some of the favorite players to coach.
Well, Chris Bencher is certainly one.
Oh, not including me, Coach.
No, I'm just telling you your story. I'm not going to repeat your story. But you and I know your story, and it's beautiful, and that's what it is all about. I think I've had so many. You're right. You worry about hurting, anyone's problem. There was a youngster when I was an assistant who's still living, and by the grace of God, I got to coach his son. It's a guy named Ray Robinson, at Tennessee, who was a center for us, and Ray he was married and had his first child while he was at Tennessee. And Ray was a small town Southern man. And when I'm using the term man, I'm telling you he wasn't a child. He was an 18-year-old man. He was not a man of a lot of words, but he was the toughest football player, offensive lineman. We were playing Ole Miss, ironically, and I think it was 88. And the old visitors' locker room, what was different than what it was, you had to go up steps. It was that upstairs locker room that existed when I took the job. And Ray could hardly get up the steps to get in at halftime. And went back out there and maybe played, and we weren't playing well, maybe played the best second half of his career, badly hurt. And that's who Ray was, a warrior, a great football warrior. And then his son, Cody Robinson, played for us at Duke. And Cody had that DNA. And I was blessed to have that opportunity. Another offensive lineman, big old strong fella. Cody had a bit of a speech impediment, had a bit of a stutter. And I watched him at Duke University thrive and overcome that, do everything he had. He was one of the toughest, and his teammates called him nasty, big nasty, because he could be nasty, and that's okay legally in football, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that tandem was absolutely amazing. And then there's another young man, and I'm going to just stay with this theme. David Douglas, who may he rest in peace, was a walk-on when I went up there initially to Tennessee. And I was coaching the tackles and tight ends, and I had David, and he was a walk-on tackle. I saw talent in this guy. And I told Coach Majors, I said, I think he's special. And lo and behold, he earned a scholarship and was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals and won a Super Bowl with the Cincinnati Bengals. And unfortunately, years later, passed away far too young. I went to that funeral, and his wife had played basketball for Pat Summitt at Tennessee, and their children, and his mom and dad were phenomenal. But I just had such great respect. And then I can tell you this, I'll go back to all three of them, and you grew me as a man. Don't think this is a one-way street. I had an old high school coach tell me that. He said, no bigger fool than one that thinks they can fool a young person, and understand none of this is about you. It's about them. And if you pay attention, you'll get better by paying attention to them. So thank you all for helping me grow. And I mean that sincerely. I'll tell people this. I had open heart surgery when we left Ole Miss. And I'll never forget this man right here coming to the hospital to make a visit. And you were the only player that I saw. And it was a low time in my life, so, and my wife's. We talk about that all the time. So thank you, Chris Spencer. You grew me that day.
Well, Coach, you know you meant the world to me. You changed my life, and I just had to show up for you. We going back in. The last question though for the 2 minute is, tell me the toughest team that you had to coach against.
Ooh. And that's I'm trying to run through this. I think Bill Oliver, who was a longtime defensive coordinator at Alabama, at Auburn, I knew what we were in for with his defensive teams. And one of the things that I studied with his team situationally knew what was happening better than any football team. The players did. A great teacher inspires learning. And I thought that his defenses knew how to adjust, and they ran themselves better than anybody else. There's a 2 minute answer.
There you go. I like it, Coach. I appreciate that. Well, Coach, I mean, it's so amazing to hear you talk about all the different intangibles that are out there from a leadership and how you grow young people. As you start to really think about your career, your coaching experience, and those intangibles that you have as a coach, give us, who are the person or people that you turn to and looked at to say, this is the type of person I want to be. This is the type of coach I want to be, because you had the knack of bringing in talent, but also high character guys. And so I'm just kind of curious of just that background of who are the people that stood out for you that molded you to this.
Yeah, it started with my mother. I mean, without any question, we lost my father far too young. My mother was an amazing mentor. She taught me to choose people, not places. So my first opportunity, I was a good player in high school, but not quite what Alabama or Auburn wanted. I had scholarships to smaller schools. We didn't have money. And I told my mother, I'm turning down these scholarships. I want to be around Coach Bryant's program somehow. She said, well, you can't afford to go. Well, what I did is I went to work. I took what people call a gap year, and I made enough money to put myself in a position to go. Alabama was aware of me, some of their assistant coaches. My high school head coach, George Oscar Shorty White, was the first coach that made a difference in my life. He taught me a lot of those intangibles. I was a pallbearer at his funeral and was honored to do that. And but by the grace of God, I got a pass there from God, and I went to Alabama, and they paid for my school, and I got to work in all aspects. I earned the nickname the Pest. So Coach Ken Donahue and Coach Mal Moore, lesser with Coach Bryant. He was a busy guy above my pay scale, but I was around him enough. Those were great mentors in an entire different era of the late 60s, early 70s. And I'll never forget this. This made a difference to me. I heard Coach Bryant say this to the team. He said, by playing in this program, you may not realize the value till you're 50 or so. But at that time, my hopes is that this program will mean as much to you as anything that occurred in your life as to who you become. And he said, there are a lot of stories, and they're tough and they're sad. He said, but let me tell you something. By playing in this program, you'll know exactly what you've got to do, and guess what? You'll do it. And that makes chills run up and down my spine. I have great friends still on all of those teams, very close. We talk about that. Some of them have run into some very difficult circumstances in their lives. And we all know that there's two things because of the circumstance. They know what to do, okay? They know exactly what to do. And they also know they can count on their teammates. And they know who their teammates are. This is an era when you really had to work hard at choosing the right place to go, just like you did. And you choose it because of people, not the places. And then you know who's your guys the rest of your life. That's the value of college football. And so that never left me. And Mal Moore was phenomenal. I will say this forever. They need a big old statue. They have the facility named after Coach Moore. Coach Moore was the offensive coordinator. He taught me a lot about quarterbacks. I would sit in and watch film with Coach Donahue to learn defense. I would sit in with Coach Moore, pestering the heck out of him to learn offense and quarterback play. Mal Moore was great with Coach Bryant and that staff. Then he became great as a director of athletics. He was humble. He put Alabama football and athletics as an AD first. There should be a big statue for that man. But, Johnny Majors, great mentor. Philip Fulmer, not much older than me, but had moved fast through the ranks. As I mentioned, Coach White, our assistant coaches, Bobby Johns and Mike Dutton at Banks High School when I was playing. Golly, I'm so thankful. But my mother said it best. Choose your people wisely, David. Choose your people wisely. That will determine a lot of your outcome. And I would tell every young person, and I told Peyton and Eli that in recruiting, and you as well, it's not about choosing places. It's about choosing people. Who's in that locker room with you? What kind of people are in there? When I took the Duke job, because we didn't have a culture, you know what I did? I took the locks off every locker in the locker room. I said, if we can't love each other and trust each other, we got no chance to win around here. And we didn't have people stealing things. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we're not on 2-minute drill. That was a serious question.
Perfect. No,
I know I talk a lot, but I want people to hear some of these things because it's critically important to the future of amateur athletics that we understand the value system, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely. I think the greatest thing that you talked about there was you put yourself in that position. You learned, you heard what your mom had to say, choosing your people, and you somewhere deep down knew this is who you want to attach yourself to so you can learn and grow. And it turned out it worked out for you. And so it's those words that moms say and they speak, they somehow find their way through that heart, and then your feet just follow. And so good for you for following your feet, Coach.
Yeah, it's not, I don't call it a career. I call it a life. I think I'm still doing the same things that I've always done in a little different method. But I never wanted a career. I wanted a good life. And trying to choose a good life, you have to choose a good path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You did bring up a name in some of your mentors and people you follow. I hate to bring it up, but I do remember a time when I was getting recruited coming out of high school, and I went up to this spot. I went up to Tennessee, and Coach Foreman was the head coach at the time, and he was one heck of a recruiter. I mean, he was smooth. And I had no intentions of committing when I went there. And lo and behold, I get there in the bright lights of Tennessee, and with some of the things that were happening back home, because I was leaning toward Ole Miss, it was kind of like that feeling of, I need to get out of here. And so I committed to Tennessee. Do you remember that phone call? Me calling you on my way back from Tennessee saying, hey, Coach, I just need to let you know I committed to Tennessee. Tell us that feeling that you had from that. Were you worried about it, or because you knew that my last visit was Ole Miss? And so take us through a little bit of that for us on this.
Yeah. Well, you know I have a severe competitive side, so I changed my body position on that phone call. And I'm ready to fight, bro. I am not going to take no for an answer. That was what was running through my mind. I knew exactly where you belong. I did, and I knew the circumstances surrounding you, your family, every aspect told me you didn't need to go beyond Oxford when it came to a decision. So obviously I'm nervous, but my mind's turning. And I also knew exactly what our relationship was compared to your relationship with those people up there. You just said the magic. You saw the bright lights. You were going to choose a place. And all I had to do was remind you, choose the right people.
You know what? And I will say, Coach, you didn't bat an eye. You just said, "Hey, your last visit is here," and you would get that reminder that this is home for you. And sure enough, we walked through the door, and even if I wanted to go to Tennessee, which I did, my mom wasn't going to allow it because you had a way with my mom that she was like, this is the man I want you to be around and grow up with, to learn from, because he's going to show you how to be a real man and not about football. And so you had her at hello, and the rest is history on that.
Well, she had me too. She was one of those parents that I evaluated, and I came out with a wow. I knew how much love was in that woman.
Absolutely.
Okay? And then I knew you had teammates already coming and at Ole Miss that you didn't want to disappoint them either. You know, we had some dudes at that time.
Had some dudes.
Now, you know
yes,
that.
had some dudes.
Tangible and intangible.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, it was good.
Well, I hate to break it up. I just had to, because I thought that was, I didn't give the first word that you said when you heard that, but you got yourself in a good calm place, and here we sit.
Well, I had to take a deep breath. There's no word for that. You just take a deep breath, and I'm like looking around for assistant coach for some little reinforcement at that point.
Coach McIntyre, he was on. He called me the next day. Him and Coach John Latina. So
yeah, I tell you, and that's two relentless recruiters. And that old Italian guy from Erie, Pennsylvania, wasn't going to back down either. And you were blessed to not only play for him as a technician,
absolutely,
but as a man. And he's retired. When he retired from football, he was with us at Duke. And if I started a program, he would have to come out of retirement, because that man can coach O-line play. But better than that, he got so much love in that big Italian heart. He and Bisaccia, how about my Italian pair at Ole Miss? And I smile every time I see Rich on the sidelines of the Green Bay Packers, just how long
he's been doing it for a long time. Been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And is he good? And then that little stint he got as an interim coach of the Raiders, and no offense to those folks, but maybe the worst decision they ever made was not making him their full-time head coach.
Yeah, I was sad to see that not happen for him. But
I was
but
too.
he's still a damn good football coach, and Coach Latina was
he's making
unbelievable.
a difference in people's lives too.
I agree. Coach Latina and I still stay in touch. I mean, I guess for my former old linemen, I can't call him Coach Latina. I call him Pops, because they always say, "Oh, that's your dad." I'm like, so based off how they say he treated you, and so it's so amazing to have people in your life that has molded you, that you can still lean on and talk to and call. And I mean, like, I can pick up the phone and call you anytime and you're there. And so I thank you for that. And as we start to really wrap up this podcast, the one thing that I like to do at the end, just like that one intangible that really stuck out for you as a person, that meant the world for you as you look back over your life, if you would share with us on the way out.
Yeah. The word relationships, If you look at your life, the intangibles are kind of like going through a cafeteria line. You have choices.
Absolutely.
And as I go back, and what was most important to me was making those decisions of not just one intangible, but the opportunity to make choices. And it had to come off relationships. I took this job with the SEC. They had never had a coach in office. And when Commissioner Sankey called me, I thought about it. He knew I'd retired from coaching. And, I didn't know what I was going to do. And they didn't have a title name. But it came back as a special assistant to the Commissioner for Football Relations. Wow. Okay, that word hit home. Relationships. Is a prefix that means over and over. So our relationship, no matter how often we see or if we have coffee in Birmingham or what, it never has changed. I love reliable people. That's an intangible. Liability means you're responsible. Means over and over and over. Okay, so relationships, Chris, is the intangible. And it's whether it's in your family, your marriage, friends, work, peers, relations and relationships. So that's the magic for me. That's been the center of my life and why I've chosen the paths that I've chosen.
Coach, thank you so much for that. I mean, it's just so fitting that is your intangible relations and relationships and over again. I am truly blessed to be coached by you. I'm truly blessed to be able to pick up the phone and still call you as a man when there's challenging times in my life, to have you and that person that truly believes in that over and over again relationship. And so I thank you. And as we really wrap up here today, the thing that I want to leave everybody with is your famous line that has carried me through a big portion of my life to do things when no one is watching, and that is leave a place better than you found it. That's what we're here for. Thank you for joining this podcast, Intangible Coach.
That's my dad left me with, the leave a place better than you found it. He put his finger in my face in the park and made us pick up all the paper, and we were mad as kids. There were 6 of us. And he said, when Cutcliffe goes somewhere, you better leave a place better than you found it. You understand? And he was looking right at me. Yes, sir.
Well,
okay. And I have tried to share that with all of you. And Chris, you continue to do that. I've kind of added leave people in places better than you found them to kind of my motto. But God bless you. I love you.
Love you too, Coach.
And I'm always available. You know that.
I appreciate it.
Good Lord willing, I'm always available.
I appreciate that. I'll see you soon.
Right.
Thank you again,
yes,
Coach.
Sir.
It's been an honor.
And when you get near me, you got to come see me. When I go up toward Tennessee, I'm gonna holler at you, man.
It's about that time to start traveling.
Coffee tastes better with Chris Spencer, even if I'm the only one drinking it.
well, I just said a brief hiatus, not a full hiatus, just a brief hiatus. Just to cleanse the system.
You don't have to. You can have your tea or water or whatever you want, man.
Coach, I enjoy my coffee taste. I don't know if I can really get rid of it completely, but as a just a kickstart to clean the system a little bit, I'm gonna try it out.
Okay, well, when you get my age, you need coffee. Don't forget that. Love you, buddy.
Good. Love you too, Coach. Have a good time at the event this weekend, and give Miss Karen a big hug for me. Tell her I miss her, and look forward to seeing her next time.
Send me an updated picture of the fam.
Will do.
All right.
All right, Coach.
Man.
Love you too.